During a site visit, investigators may encounter the predetermined time standards method called MODAPTS. Different from a stopwatch-based measurement, MODAPTS analyzes the actual physical movements involved with work-related activities. While highly specialized, it's important for investigators to be familiar with the basics of this method.
CRPs have adopted MODAPTS for several reasons, particularly with regard to the energy level for our workers. It gives a more efficient way of setting the jobs up, so it eliminates unnecessary motions, makes them more efficient in their movements, which in turn drives a higher level of productivity, which in turn drives a higher pay for them. One of the things that makes MODAPTS most successful is when you have listed all of the motions that are involved in a particular job setup, and you get them written down on a piece of paper and you start counting up the actual mods that go along with them. You see the mods that take up the most amount of time, and it sort of leads you to readapting and redesigning the jobs so that you eliminate the ones that have the longest motions and the most amount of time, and it helps lead you to have a more efficient job setup.
The MODAPTS system breaks down a manual work task into a series of separate body movements. These movements each have defined motions that are measured and expressed as a unit of time. Nearly all manually controlled work tasks can be analyzed this way, with some being more complex than others. The smallest MODAPTS unit, called a mod, consists of a simple finger movement and takes 0.129 seconds, roughly a seventh of a second. Movements done by the fingers, the hand, the arm, the shoulder, or trunk of the body also have specific motions and times associated with them. These and other movements that occur in the process of work are multiples of the basic seventh of a second mod unit. Like other measurement systems, when applied to a job or task, MODAPTS is designed to yield a specific time for efficient performance.
MODAPTS, because it is timing the exact motions that are entailed in the job, it eliminates a lot of variability and subjectivity that sometimes comes with some of the other time methods. When you have someone who is being stopwatch timed, they may feel some sort of pressure to work a little faster, work a little slower. Someone who may not feel well today may work a little slower than they might otherwise. And MODAPTS takes all of that out because it's strictly the exact motions that are necessary to do the job. So once we get the job set up correctly and we've correctly MODAPTed it, you can take that standard and go any place in the world and with any group of people, and that's the correct time study for that job.
Investigators will see the impact of MODAPTS when examining a CRP's time study standards. Other measurement methods derive standards from timings of workers who do not have a disability for the work being measured. MODAPTS does not. The system bases its time standards for any job on an analysis of the movements involved and the sum of predetermined time measurements. That sum reflects a specific time for completing a production job or the number of completed units for piece rates, independent of actual time studies.
The MODAPTS are adaptable when we have changes in our work processes. For example, if we're doing a job that's collating 4 pieces and putting them into an envelope, and our job changes so that there's only 3 pieces, we can go into the MODAP analysis and remove the body motions that were related to that 4th piece and be fairly certain going forward that our new analysis is an accurate representation of the correct standard for that particular job.
Investigators will see some differences in the consumer files at MODAPTS-based CRPs. While the job description form will be familiar, the task analysis form may not. In addition to a list of a task's component movements, investigators will see codes representing those movements. These codes are converted into mods, then added to determine the total mods to complete the job. For piece rate jobs, the PF&D factor must also be included. Even without MODAPTS experience, investigators can still verify its accuracy. It's done by conducting actual stopwatch time studies of workers who do not have a disability for the job. As with hourly or piece rate measurements, the investigator should require the CRP to conduct the time study for a minimum of 20 minutes or 20 products to provide reliable data. Just as important, the investigator should make sure the standard setter is working at a normal pace, with fluid, unhurried movements that could be sustained over an entire shift. Generally, if a MODAPTS-based standard falls within 10% of the stopwatch measurement, it's considered acceptable. The investigator may then proceed to examine the records of specific consumers, knowing that the standard data is sound. If there's more than a 10% difference between the MODAPTS standard and the time study result, the CRP should re-examine the task analysis to eliminate possible sources of error. If the difference continues to exceed 10%, it indicates that the standard is in error and the consumers have not been properly paid.
MODAPTS is designed to capture each and every motion that's involved with a particular task. It seems to make inherent sense that capturing each one of those motions is easy, and we find that it's not. So we like to have someone who is very knowledgeable and trained in applying the MODAPTS methodology to design our job setups so that we get an absolutely accurate analysis of our jobs.
Many CRPs view MODAPTS as an accurate and objective time measurement system that eliminates the subjective elements involved with stopwatch-based measurements. Those CRPs choosing to use it should have trained specialists producing the task analysis. But supervisors are still responsible for answering any questions an investigator may have about the method or its resulting standards.
Ultimately, CRPs are responsible for acquiring their time study data, and they have to be able to explain how they arrived at it. CRPs utilizing MODAPTS not only have to understand the process, but they have to know how it works.
Investigators encountering MODAPTS should know it's not a difficult method to understand. What's more, it should produce results that can be verified by a stopwatch-based time study.
Wage hour investigators don't have to be experts in MODAPTS to confirm its results. They just have to be able to conduct an accurate stopwatch time study.